Hello, welcome to the first video on setting up an HMI. In this video we're going to walk through establishing communications, setting up the software, and getting ready to start making HMI screens. Open on the screen here is RSLogix 500. I've made just a simple rung that our HMI is going to speak to. Now in Rockwell Software, Factory Talk View Studio. Studio is the creation software we are going to use to create an HMI. In your case, this might be a little bit different. You may have to open up a simulator or an emulator, and it might be a different path, but the software name will be exactly the same. When it opens up, we have to choose what type of application we want to run. We're looking for a machine edition. And when we say machine edition, it will now set up the background files to run as a machine edition application. And it will ask us if we'd like to open an existing application or create a new one. We'll open a new one. We'll name it whatever, well, you can name it whatever you'd like. Say create, and what it's doing now is creating a new application that's going to run as a machine edition on this computer. It basically now has networked using RS links to the PLC, and it's not a bad idea, before you go too much farther, to open RS links down here and just do a quick search and make sure that you actually have a PLC connected and that its address is what you want it to be. In the RS View software, before we can start creating any screens, step one is to establish communications with the PLC. So under RS Links Enterprise, choose Communication Setup, and we're going to create a new configuration to the PLC we are using in our labs. Here on the left side are the shortcuts or the paths that we're going to generate to the PLC. Here on the right is really just RS links. This is why we needed to check that the PLC existed in RS links, because that's where this information is coming from on the right. We highlight the PLC, we say add, we give the path to that PLC a name, and then as a quick check, highlight both, and if apply is an option, hit apply. What we want is to be sure that both are highlighted at once, and that this path we've just created, this shortcut, links directly to this PLC. The local target here is for design. This is where our design software is going to look, and of course we want it to look for the PLC when it's importing tags and addresses. The target or runtime is where the application or the actual HMI software is going to look when we run this as an HMI. And we would like it, of course, to look at the same PLC, so we can actually just say copy from design to runtime. Yes? And now the runtime target is identical to the local target, meaning that our design software and our HMI software are both pointing to the same PLC. Now I can, oops, okay this, sorry, that verify was a mistake. If you want, you can do it. It just verifies that there is a path from this computer to the PLC. Now we should have communications between this computer and the HMI, and at the same time between our HMI and the screen. Keep in mind, you'll be having to run this in the labs in a 32-bit XP simulator. So you may have to go back and forth between Windows 7 and the XP simulator a bit. I didn't include that in the video because that's very specific to our labs only. Now that we have communications, we can set up a display. If you go right, graphics, and then click right side mouse on display and say new application, new display. Here's our new display. In this display we can insert an object, a drawing, a push button, a string. We can have go to screens and return from screens, and a display selector list. There's a lot of really unique things that this can do. For our sake, we're just going to create a simple momentary push button. While we're at this stage, we also need to go to Advanced under Objects. Oops. And write a Go to Config button in. If we don't have a Go to Config button, there is no way to get out of the HMI software. If you double click on this, we can change its label. So we'll call it Config so that we know what that button does. On the original push button, if we double click on it, we could have also gone right side mouse properties. All of the information for this button comes up. Normally open, normally closed, how long one press will be maintained for, the states, borders, shapes, colors. I can say in state 0, I want it to be yellow, and I want it to say push, or whatever you want. Pick some of your own settings and fool around with this a little bit. We also have the ability to set its size, and most importantly, we need to address it or tell it, when I press this button, what bit is this in the PLC. So under the Connections tab on the momentary push button properties, we can open the tag software, go right side mouse on either the file or system, but if you go right side mouse up here on the file and say refresh all folders, what it does is it searches the network and it sees that we've generated a network path, and in that network path, because we've checked, we have an online PLC, and that online PLC has the following data tables. We have referenced, now we can reference any data table we want, and it's pulling that directly from the online machine. So what I'm going to do, I just realized I should have done this first, is I'm going to download a simple program I've created to the PLC, because I want it to pull this data file, not whatever's in the PLC currently. There's a lot of beeping. Okay, there. We're now online and this is working. I'll come back here. Just to make sure that what it's reading is accurate, I'll refresh everything again. B300 is there. That's the one I want. Now, unfortunately, it's looking for a tag which is word level. We need to make sure this address in the tag expression is correct, and it is B3:0/0. When we're happy with that, we hit OK. And now this button is referencing that address. And when we push it, it would go yellow, and when it is in state 0, it should stay blue. A couple quick things we got to do, and then I'll end this video and start the next one. One of the things that we need to do is say, when this runs on an HMI, what is my initial graphic? Before I can do that, I need to save this screen. Sorry. Yes, I'll save it. I will call it. And I could have multiple screens and make this the first one. Now you'll see I have a main screen. I can now go to Startup and say the initial screen, or the first screen to start up, is going to be main. I also want to go in and set project settings. It's currently set to run on a panel view 700 or 1100. Those are actual industrial HMIs that would go on a shop floor. We are going to be using a computer, so I'll set it to the highest resolution possible. It could also, for example, be set for a panel view 600, or there. For example, the ones that are in A150, this is the one that you'd be choosing. Okay. We've now created a screen, set up communication, set up a start screen, and established what type of machine this is going to run on. This project is done. The last part of this video is going to be creating a runtime application. A runtime application is in essence a zipped or compressed version of this screen I've created that's ready to be transferred or ran on an HMI. I'm going to call it Lab MER and just leave it at its default location. And now you'll see it's creating a runtime file. So it's compressing it and making it into a usable file for an HMI. If I wasn't happy with it, if I wanted to make changes, so if I came in and said, I wanted this button to be here, I would now have to go and create, save this screen. I would now need to go and create a new runtime with these change data to make that change happen. So every change you make, you have to produce a new runtime. You can overwrite the old runtime. In the next video, we'll show you how to open the new software and run that runtime application.